practice some differentiated instruction here shortly. And those of you in Wamego, I will send this packet along with Ms. Rothwell, so you can get a packet also. And you do have the organizer that came with the PowerPoint. You'll notice there are numbers around the edges. That happen to be the pages. At this point, you have the right to share with your neighbor what you found in reading it, if you've been successful. And sometimes learning is done so much better in a social realm than it is in anything else. So share what you've learned. See if you can read it. Ladies, there's packets here. Give you about 2 minutes to talk to your neighbor. Ooh, maybe somebody's got a strategy. This is differentiating, is finding that strategy. Knowing partners work better sometimes than individuals work. Anybody find a strategy? I see some people using positional pieces. Anybody read page 1? Come on, class, you can do it. I really like the way we have risk takers that are taking the opportunity. Do you have an idea, Justine, on how you're going to do this? It is there. It is there. Anybody. It just takes one and then we've got it. It's readable, very definitely. Don't give up. This is persistence in those math problems. Just like math, you persist until you get the answer. Hint, those of you who are looking at it sideways have begun to get the strategy. But look at page 1. I'm just differentiating those positional. Did you? Read page 1. Oh my gosh, how did you get that? Tell us how so we can practice. Now, do you think they all know what? Now, if that's the case, you can read page 1. Read page 2 for us to prove that she can do it. Don't you feel good being the first in class? Now we've got to teach everybody else. That's differentiation. Their learning style. Can anyone figure out what we would do? Now, since you've seen it, is there a way that you could share how you have read this? Could we use like a highlighter? That might help. Okay, I read it. At first, you, what's that next word? Only see. And then page 2, word shapes and lines. I agree. She's reading so well. When someone helps and a miracle happens. Anybody over here see it? See, there we're differentiating. We're showing with a marker how it would look. That's learning happens. Here's the at. You sort of look down at it. At first, you. Here's the A. Are you on page 1? You are. And here's going to be the at. It's stretched way out. We are doing one-on-one individual guidance. All these are elements of differentiated instruction. Did you not get it?
No, I did.
All 4 pages.
Yeah.
Okay, is there someone who didn't get it that you could teach? Anybody still needs help? She's got it. You all 3 have it? Don't you love the cooperative learning? There is another differentiated strategy. Okay, if I can have your attention. I always like to do this because once one person sparkles with it, the rest gleam and start to learn. And I can tell if you really have learned it by the way you teach. To teach is to learn, and to learn is to teach. So that really gives a good drama to what differentiated instruction is. So we've got our engaged activity. I would like you at this point to look at the last page in the flyer. It's an advanced organizer. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to read the statement given. And before we learn about differentiated instruction, I'm going to ask you if you agree or disagree with that statement. Give you about 2 minutes. You're going to read, and then you are going to mark whether you agree or disagree with that. And then we'll come back afterwards and reflect and look at what we think. Truly, this is going to be a piece that you're going to use for self-reflection. I will not see this or use this, but it will be there for your benefit to know as we end if you truly do understand the differentiated instruction model. We're going to move forward. If you need more time, raise your pinky. You feel ready to go on? Raise your thumb. Okay, we'll move forward then. Okay, according to the definition we're given by Carol Ann Tomlinson, differentiated instruction is a teaching philosophy based on the premise that teachers should adapt their instruction to student differences. We shouldn't use a rote book definition and instruct totally students that way. Rather than marching students through curriculum lockstep, teachers should modify their instruction to meet students' varying readiness levels, learning preferences, and interests. Right now, how many of you know whether your students in your class like to learn with light or without light? If you know what they prefer, raise your thumb. Okay? That's because your teacher, your mentor teacher, has set up that standard knowing that different students learn in different modalities, in different ways. And also their interest. That's why contextual factors are so important. Because if you learn to teach toward their interests and their learning styles, you're going to capture them so much easier than if you just do something from the book and say, that's it, that's the way I've been taught, that's it. The teacher has to proactively plan a variety of ways to get at and express learning. Much of what Ms. Rothwell is going to talk about, too, with MTSS is also going to deal with that because each student at varying academic levels need different strategies to help them be successful. Some of the statements that we know from research methods that we've seen is that people will learn what is personally meaningful to them. I love music. I love science. So things that relate to those two are going to interest me more than anything else. And I'll probably learn them far quicker and easier than something else if it was presented differently. People learn when they accept challenging but achievable goals. That means learning has to be in that mindset of growth. You want to grow and learn as much as you can. Learning is developmental. You're going to find that different students have different levels of learning. I work with an advanced group of second graders who are on third grade material. They're going to learn a lot different than third graders who are working at that level because they've got a different mindset. We all know we learn differently. How many of you, let me ask some questions to see if I can talk to my crowd. How many of you love the outdoors? How many of you love racing sports cars? How many of you enjoy farming? Yeah, we've got farmers in there. How many of you enjoy a good movie? How many of you have seen American? Yes. Okay, how many of you enjoyed that movie? Okay. That tells me something about my audience. Okay? People construct new knowledge by building on their current knowledge. When I learn something about, I love to crochet and knit, so I learn how to crochet and use a different stitch. It's going to be far better, and it's going to be more attractive to me. Social interactions, how you deal with each other and talk with each other, is going to provide so much better atmosphere for learning than if you'd have to do it all on your own. That's why when we did our first learning opportunity, I had you do it alone to see if anyone caught it at that point. And very few of us did. But when two people talk and learn, it's going to be more acceptable, and people are going to be able to learn more than if just one at a time. Even 3 or 4. We had a cooperative group here that taught each other. Hopefully by now you can read all 4 pages and I can give you a test. Doggone it. No, I won't do that. Okay. People need feedback to learn. You need to know how you've done. That's why as we are in your classrooms observing, it is sort of critical that you know and you feel that feedback's given to you as a teacher. Successful learning involves use of strategies that you learn. How many of you are in SFA school? We have so many strategies we teach to the kids, but we need to carry them over into other areas, other social and learning climates. A positive social climate strengthens learning. You will find when there's a smile and you've got a great attitude in your classroom, the kids are going to learn far better than if you're there harping on the kids and they just don't know what to expect, or they know there's a fire drill coming and they don't know if they should learn or not. I mean, all those things put into play. Learning is influenced by the total environment. How many of you have been in a classroom setting where it's too hot and you can't stand it? Okay? Too cold and you're so shivering. Windy, light, is an important factor here. In the spring, when kids are testing, we know we need to give them a lot of water so they learn well. We also know that we need to keep everything brisk and moving, or else they just lose the focus on testing. So that's a very critical part. Okay. Some of the key principles for a differentiated classroom is that the teacher has to be clear about their instructions. It is very important that you, as the teacher, are clear about what you want your kids to do. You set that up, you state it, you give directions, you help them follow through, and you build on student differences. You take advantage of different languages. You take advantage of students who have different expertises. I have a student in my third grade group who loves to ask the thinker questions, and I tell her up front she's the expert. She doesn't have to answer. But I also tell her, I know and for a fact that she's, in your opinion, is her strength. So I play up on that. I play to that so that I can get her on my side. It is important to remember that anytime you teach, you're going to assess. Assessment becomes a critical part about what you're doing. It doesn't have to be a formal paper or pencil test, but you have to know in some way, shape, or form how your kids have done on the assessment or on the objective that you've given. If you don't know how to move forward, to move back, to remediate, or to help the students that you are working with. You have to adjust the content, process, and product in response to student readiness. Are they ready for it? How many of you have given your kids something that you found later on was so hard they couldn't handle it? Yeah. And that's part of knowing your students. I know, Tess, you've come across that with kindergarten. You design something one way, and you know it doesn't work because they're not ready for it yet. And that happens to each and every one of us. But it's funny, by the end of the year, they will be. And it's hard to know a child, to know whether they're ready for that or not. Okay? We have to respect students. We cannot create a task for them that is going to be demeaning to them. By that I mean we have to know if it's appropriate for their gender. You know, you wouldn't want to have a group of girls doing something that's totally male unless you've got that in and know enough about them. Ninja Turtles, you know, the interest. That's why we have you get the interest level from them. The teachers and students together should design some of the learning. That's why it's important for you to have kids involved in what they want to do. We want to have the maximum growth and individual success for every single child that comes to work with your class and in the principles of differentiated classroom. Flexibility. Being able to change at a moment's notice is key. If we don't and can't change that quickly, then this profession may not be one for you. So that is critical to know that you have to be willing to change. Okay, I'm giving you some more guides for planning. Many of you will see these words and think, what does that mean? Or I've done something like that. It is key to realize that the more you know about your students, the better your differentiation is going to go. Learning profile. Many years ago, we offered a survey to the students and asked them how they like to learn. Whether they like to be in the darkness or be in the light, whether they like music, whether they like to eat while they're learning. All those are factors that help and assist kids. So, again, it is important for you to be aware of what they enjoy. Readiness. Have they had the skill? I'm working with a group of second graders who have not had any multiplication background. No arrays, no multiplication facts, no division background. This program they're working with offers them 6 times blank equals 42. Can they figure it out? No, they're not ready for it. So I have to backtrack, have to differentiate for them. And I'm going to be teaching the basics of multiplication to these second graders who are hitting this information and they are advanced. I don't want them frustrated in what they're doing. I want them to feel successful. Therefore, I've got to reteach. I've got to be willing to slow my pace and backtrack so I can get them to learn. I have to be willing to work with interest. Military children have many interests that maybe kids off military base doesn't. So knowing your kids as a military student is key. The content. Most kids love animals. And so science and animals become very, very critical for them. Making a product. Knowing that kids love to make things, create things. We saw a video presentation being made over here as we entered the library today. Third graders, they can handle it, they can do it. Boy, they have this to share and show with them forever. So the product. But in the same light, there should be a rubric to evaluate them to see if they meet all their needs. So that's where the assessment comes into play. The more activities you can offer, the better. But it creates sometimes a team of people to offer the expertise to have all those activities available. So never be afraid to ask. Your team members, your mentor teachers, all have same grade level mentors, and those are the partners that are ideal to work with. We look at Gardner's 7 intelligence, and you will see that many of these are the pieces that link to the interests and the learning styles of students. I want you to turn to a neighbor real quick and talk about these in terms of you to them, if you're willing to share that with them. I will tell you right now, when we're done, we're going to be doing some clicking because I like the musical rhythmical, and I'm going to show you a way that you can use it. But right now, talk to them, see which two of these are your strength, your niche, and which one. Which ones are your strengths?
Mathematical,
Uh-huh.
visual, and observing and stuff.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
I like the music, the patterns, music, rhythmic. And I like the naturalistic. I'm the outdoor person, so give me the science and give me the music or rhythmic angles. That's what I enjoy.
They were doing that in my secondary class.
And what?
Natural.
They were out. What were they doing?
They were doing geometric shapes or stuff in nature.
Good, good. Okay, repeat after me. Ready, set, and go. Who did what, where, when, and why? Who did what, where, when, and why? Who did what, where, when, and why? How? Great way to do summarizing, and the kids will never forget those words, and they really, you start snapping, and they know what's coming. Okay, so that's one of the rhythmical ways. I love to do science and do all sort of water cycle things, has wonderful sounds. There's loads of songs out there. So please do take advantage of that musical rhythmic. You'll be amazed. You snap and they start to think it in their head. And there's research to show that those elements become strong factors in people remembering. Who would like to share the things that they love? And maybe, would you like to share your naturalistic one that you saw done today in your second grade classroom? What a glorious day to do it too, right? Yeah. Now, snow maybe gets excited snowflakes, but anybody else have something you really love, a way that you love to teach? Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. So do you use a lot of brain breaks then and get that rolling in the classroom? And it takes a lot to teach that in order to get it rolling, right? To get their expectations. Anybody else? Something you hate as equally. I have a husband who is logical, mathematical. He can tell me when the comb on the dresser is turned over because it's out of place. But, I mean, I married him. I don't know what, but I don't know. Not at all. But, I mean, logical, mathematical, those kind of things. He also talks a lot, so he's always talking. I think, but I don't say it. But, I mean, it's okay to say that about spouse. No evidence taken here. Okay, so anybody else have something they just don't like much? Visual spatial. It's important to know what they are too. So, what's the difference between interpersonal and intrapersonal? Yeah. Yeah. That's important to know too. But again, Gardner's 7 intelligence help us get those down. Okay, moving forward, strategies have proven different ways that learning happens more successfully. And the one that is top in everything happens to be identifying similarities and differences. If you look at page 9 in your packet, it has a listing of the percentile rank and gain that's offered for some basic strategies if you want to get the most bang for your buck for learning. It's 45 percentile gain for identifying similarities and differences. And that is why we use the Venn diagrams and make statements about Venn diagrams to show similarities and differences. You'll see summarizing and note-taking is 34% gain, and then reinforcing effort and providing recognition. That's for effort. It's not for practice. That's for how hard the child works. And then homework and practice, 28. And then it goes all the way down to questions, cues, and advanced organizers, 22. But if you ever want to make sure there's a lot of learning happening, you'll use identifying similarities and differences. Okay, part of what a differentiated task means is that you have to be respectful to the individual in their learning. That means that the learning is engaging. It has to be something they want to do. It has to be worthwhile, rigorous, authentic, accessible, scorable, which we often have trouble with as we're looking at objectives, and clear. So when we look at ideas of what we want students to be able to do, we need to be able to check off most of these to make sure the task is respectful and organized for them. Also, in this list you will find a list of accommodations, considerations. It happens to be on page 13 in your packet. So, for example, if you have someone that has a physical disability, it gives you here an accommodation you could make. It gives you someone who's easily distracted, short attention span. How many of you have a student who's easily distracted? Gracious. Yeah, I wonder why. Here's a bunch of ideas for them. Using a seating chart, they sit in front of the room. They have tests in the morning when they're earlier. There's a bunch of great ideas here for what you can use. Hard of hearing. Do any of you have any hard of hearing students? Here's some. They could use Braille or spelling, grammar assisted device, visual organizers, graphic organizers. Anyway, this offers some. There's loads of ideas out there, but there's some ideas for you. Again, learning styles, knowing how a student best learns and helping them to understand themselves as learners. If you have built this system into a child's opportunities well, they will know I can't do my best if I'm sitting by the door because I'm distracted. and it helps them. They know what works for them. Also, we've talked about some of the ideas here. It also, on this activity sheet, it gives you ideas for 20 tips for teachers of language minority students, and there's 20 ideas for helping support their learning opportunity. As we move forward, we're going to watch a video. In this video, these are questions I like to consider beforehand, so when we look at it afterwards, you can look and to answer these questions. The first question is, what evidence did you see that this fourth grade is differentiated? So it's going to be a fourth grade math lesson. How were these tasks respectful? How could you tell that this teacher knew her students? Knowing her students means what they can do, what they can't do. How have your ideas, this is going to be at the end, about differentiation remain the same? How have your train of thoughts different? And what's one practice, something that you thought about today that you can use tomorrow?